Hey everybody, welcome to Damper 3. It's Eric.
Hey, and it's Jeff. What do you say, gang?
We are going to be talking about the most underrated animated films from the 1970s and 1980s.
We'll be hitting such greats as Mr. Ralph Bakshi, and we will find ourselves in the gutter tanked out with the horrible likes of Ralph Bakshi.
We cover the gamut of
every Ralph Bakshi.
Before we get started, guys, I wanted to invite you all, for those of you who like looking back at some of the film and TV greats, we have also started another channel called D3 Reads. And so we look at some of the formative books. We look at sci-fi, we look at fantasy, we look at humor, and we talk about what's new, what inspired the new stuff, and all that. So if you are into reading, take a look at D3R and give us a subscription over there. We're covering the most underrated movie or animated movies from the 70s and 80s. We've got a few of them here, and let's go back to what you were talking about, Ralph Bakshi.
Oh,
let's kick off.
Terrible Ralph Bakshi movie.
No, this is the good Ralph Bakshi.
The good one, yes, of course.
Let's start off with this.
Good Ralph Bakshi.
1977, right. Wizards came out. What a classic that one was.
That was amazing. Had Avatar and I think Black Wolf, the protagonist and antagonist.
They were brothers.
Yep. As you said, Mark Hamill voices
Sean.
Sean, yeah.
King of the Mountain Fairies.
Yep.
Yeah, now this animated film, there's a couple things about it. First of all, the plot is insane, right? It's a post-apocalyptic world. It's where there's a nuclear war, and then thousands of years later, the radiation's finally faded away. Humanity can come back, but then
magic has sprung up.
Magic has sprung up because technology's been banned, right? Science and technology's been banned, and but the olden folk, the trolls, the fairies, the elves, and all that kind of stuff, which apparently predated humanity, they've come out too. So it's a mixed fantasy world, and then you have Avatar and Black Wolf, who are siblings who are wizards, and Black Wolf does what evil people do. He's trying to conquer the world, and Avatar, being the good wizard, is going to try to stop him. But it's the animation style that really kind of stands out here. What is it called?
Cool, funky.
I think it's called 70s. Rotoscoping animation or something like that. Ralph Bakshi was like the foremost practitioner of this. He's considered visionary with this stuff, and basically they take real world stuff and they trace over it. They take footage a lot of the time. Now Avatar and Black Wolf, they look like traditional animation, but then when the armies of the Black Wolf come out, a lot of them, you see the tank footage and the aircraft, the Stukas. Avatar, we're not going to spoil it for you, but Avatar and Black Wolf come together for one ultimate battle at the end of the movie, and that's everything you could ever hope for, and probably not at all what you're expecting. Now this is unique. It's amazing. It's unique storytelling. Loved it. It's got a warm place in our hearts. But now we're going to talk about the awful Ralph Bakshi. And some of you may not like this opinion. This may be an unpopular opinion, but we're going there anyway. 1978. Now, technically, this is not an underrated animated film. The Lord of the Rings. It should have been. In 1978.
No. It should have been appropriately rated, far less than it was.
Right. The Lord of the Rings, when it came out in 1978, was actually considered pretty groundbreaking. And it did not do bad at the box office. It was the 16th top grossing movie in 1978. It raked in $30 million. It was supposed to have the second half of it made, and it didn't fall apart because it didn't do well. It didn't materialize. The second part of The Lord of the Rings was still supposed to happen, but it fell apart, I think, over just squabbling over script or something like that. But it didn't do badly. But I'm here to tell you that this did not do Tolkien justice. this rotoscope, the thing that made him most famous was the animation style, but the tracing over of real actors to create this animated, I thought was awful. Gandalf just came across as insane. The very last scene, if I recall correctly, the last battle was at Helm's Deep. I think that's where it ended. And Gandalf is doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's riding in to, save the day, and he's got Glamdring, and he is swinging and just that's my eyes. That's
no. I was there when you did that.
I called him Gandalf the Barbarian when he was doing that. That was what he reminded me of. I did not think that was. So anyway, I know there's a cult following around the Lord of the Rings 78, but he tried to secure the rights to Led Zeppelin's music to use in the movie. He couldn't get it, but because Led Zeppelin. Good. Right, exactly. Now, nothing wrong with Led Zeppelin's music. I love that they cite the Lord of the Rings type stuff in their song music, but I don't want to hear it in a piece of. And I'm sure that the Tolkien estate wouldn't have been too thrilled with it either. So yeah.
We've discussed this before, and I've said the reason it did so good is because there was so little being offered that was Tolkien.
I agree, and I think the animation was a gimmick. It was shiny. Yeah. It was relatively new, even though Wizards came out before it and did a lot of the same kind of stuff. But yeah, not to mention Boromir being a freaking Viking really didn't do anything for me either. He had the Viking helmet thing going on. 77. Okay, let's stick in this time frame. 77, when Wizards came out. Also, now this is where we're going to get into some arguments with some folks. I think 1977 is also when the animated The Hobbit came out. Now, The Hobbit was made for TV. My understanding was that the intention was to make it into a full-length movie, but then they found out about Disney's the Lord of the Rings coming out, and so we can't compete with that. So they turned it into a TV made-for-TV thing. That was a Rankin Bass production. So the same people who did the stop-motion Christmas specials and all that are the ones who are responsible for The Hobbit. What'd you think of it, Jeff?
Oh man, I wasn't as big of a purist as you were as far as Tolkien was concerned. In fact, I think I ended up reading The Hobbit after watching it, and right. It was just it was incredible. It was, I'm a storyteller at heart, so anytime I get to hear a story is just excellent, and they just did it so well. And I mean, the animation, not Frodo, Bilbo. He just looked like a nice little woodland dude that was just hanging out, yeah. and it just, they captured it so well. It was a great feeling.
And I'll agree with all of that. I mean, I am a purist, but The Hobbit wasn't. When it came out, mixed reception. Some folks were like, "Yeah, this isn't bad." One critic at the time, he was a sci-fi writer, but also he is a critic for the New York Times. He called it an abomination. Some other folks who were related with the Tolkien estate weren't too necessarily thrilled with it either. They point out, rightfully so, with it and the sequel, The Return of the King, which came out in 1980, that the music is not Elvish,
Tra-la-la-lally, here down in the valley. Oh, where are you going with beards all a-wagging? No knowing what brings Mr. Baggins.
And yeah, some of it's kind of annoying, but some of it's catchy. And frankly, it's not pretentious. What I liked about it is it tried to tell the story as best as a 45-minute block of animation could. And The Hobbit, more so than Lord of the Rings, because there was obviously a lot more of the Lord of the Rings that they could have put in, but didn't have the time for. But The Hobbit, they told a story, and it worked really, really well. And I think you're right. I think they're designed for Gandalf and for The Hobbit, or excuse me, for Bilbo and for Thorin. I think the main characters there were all really, really well done. So yeah, I will agree. I mean, the elves, what were they thinking? I've complained about them before. The elves, what were you doing in the forest in the first place? This whole Germanic accent, they look like goblins, so
beautiful woodland spirits.
that is not, I don't know what they were thinking. So they're not perfect, but as far as when they came out and what they tried to do, they did, I think, a really, really good job with it. So The Hobbit and The Return of the King, I think, are underrated.
By comparison to the live action Hobbit, they didn't, for example, try to bring Aragorn into The Hobbit.
Right.
Which, yeah.
Here's the thing, and this is, you bring a good point. Let's talk about the movie real quick. Peter Jackson took a relatively short novel and tore it apart and to make a trilogy out of it.
He crammed one movie's worth of material into 3 movies.
The 3 movies. But whereas the cartoon basically boiled it down to, I think, the elements that made the story special. It made it enjoyable. So even if it didn't do it perfectly, it did it well enough to where it pulled a bunch of people in to the books.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one, Jeff.
I've got one for you.
Oh, what you got?
Well, how typically whenever we get into horror or we get into sci-fi, I have a tendency to fade back to Life Force. The Life Force of that animation period was probably heavy metal. And that's probably all we need to really say about that. I'm not comfortable saying some of my favorite quotes from the movie. So I'm just, that's pretty much it.
Let's just say, heavy metal, it was clearly not designed for it. Probably not
made
intended
for TV.
No, actually, that's probably not true, Jeff. It probably was intended for our age group, just old enough to sneak into at late at night and watch it on cable when everyone falls asleep. More of an adult cartoon. So we'll leave it at that. The only thing I remember from that is the stuff that my parents didn't want me to watch. So switching gears to 1983, Twice Upon a Time. I know I brought this up in previous look backs, but if you haven't seen it, 1983, George Lucas produced, though he wasn't, his hands weren't on it, but it helped produce this. It came out at the same time as Return of the Jedi. Love this story. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, there's the dream world. You have the world of dreams and the world of nightmares, and then you have real world, which is called Din. They call us the rushers of Din because we're always rushing around, right? But their job is to give us our dreams. So whenever we go to sleep, the good guys will deliver the good dreams, but then the bad guy, Synonymous Botch, him and his vultures will deliver the nightmares, and they deliver them. So while we're asleep, these vultures will fly in with these bomb-looking things and drop them on you, and it gives you nightmares. It uses a unique animation style that mixes real world with animation, and it's just really clever, really well done. It's innocent, fun for the most part. They do sneak in a few bad words here and there, but because it's a Lucas production, they sneak in some references to Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark here and there. It's so much fun, but it didn't even register. The rollout was so junked because of legal issues and all this that it never really made it out into the movie theaters, and so it didn't even register on the box office. So
sort of like Zoolander coming out right about 9/11. It went nowhere in the movies, but it's a cult favorite.
Right. So if you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. Like I say, it's clever. It's fun. The pacing is a little quirky, I think.
Buddy of mine loaned it to me.
I'm expecting it back.
Let me know how that works out for you.
So that's our list of underrated animated movies. The 70s and 80s had lots of awesome animated movies, The Black Cauldron, Secret of Nihm, Dalmatians, 100, tons and tons of good stuff came out of there, but some of them had to slip through the cracks. So let us know what you think were the ones that slipped through the cracks that everyone should see. Let us know if you have something to add to the list, or if you think that we were a little too hard on Ralph Bakshi, and
or too soft on Ralph Bakshi.
Or too soft. Yeah. It was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for so much for joining us. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, all that kind of good stuff. Again, if you haven't seen D3 Reads, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody, for your time. Have a great day.
See you, gang.